Hey BookTube, I'm Gabby Sunshine and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be all about the sources that I use to find my book recommendations and how I kind of learned what sources to trust and where to get opinions from. And before I get into the video, I just want to preface with the fact that you're never going to find a perfect book recommendation source. If you do, congrats to you, but everyone has different preferences in books, and so it will be hard to find sources that you can 110% trust all the recommendations, but hopefully through a few of the sources you can get a collective community where you know that 99% of the time you will be reading a good book next. And just because these sources work for me doesn't mean that they work for everybody else, so just keep that in mind. Hopefully you can learn a thing or two though about where to get recs from. Also, for every source, I'm going to be going into just kind of what the source is and then why I like the source, and then my process of kind of vetting the source and seeing who I trust and what opinions from it I can trust. My first source is of course BookTube, and BookTube, being the community that it is, has so many YouTubers who are just so dedicated to reading, really know what they're talking about, and there's a lot of different YouTubers for every niche, every genre preference, anything you can think of out there. It's just a matter of finding who you mesh most with. What I personally like about YouTube is the wide variety of books out there that people talk about, from very mainstream, very popular books to lesser known books, and so it really covers it all. In terms of finding a YouTuber that you can really trust getting recommendations from for yourself personally, I recommend watching all of their videos. It is really helpful to see what kind of books they read, if they have read books that you have read in the past or books that you really like and you know that, okay, we have some similar tastes going on here. Also, the way they describe the plot. If the plot of the book sounds like something you really want to read, then pay attention to that. And also their gut reaction after the book, and you can kind of learn through watching all their videos what they really expect when they read a book and what their personality kind of is. And through all those different things, you can kind of get an idea of how much you really mesh with that booktuber and how close their opinion of books will be towards yours. And of course, I said it's not going to be 110% exact, but you can get pretty close. There are booktubers who I love watching their videos and interacting with, but I don't necessarily take book recommendations from them because I just know their books are not my style. Source number 2 is going to be Facebook, and I don't know if anybody else on here uses Facebook for this, but I definitely do. If you do, leave a comment below because I'd love to interact with you about this. But Facebook has a feature where you can join groups, and these groups really exist for any sort of interest you can think of. And so you can join these communities and have discussions regarding whatever the community club is about. And so of course there are many ones revolving around books, and so I have been involved in these communities for about 3 years, so I kind of feel a little bit of an expert on the topic. But these book groups really range from very general to very specific. And so what I really like about this book community on Facebook is that I can join communities and only talk about the things that that book community is supposed to talk about. So for example, I am in a really general one that's just called Bookaholics. And so that one, I can come to and expect 24/7 content coming from different people all over the world regarding what they're reading now. Is this book going to be worth my time? Things like that. And it's really good just to be around other people who really like to read. And then getting more specific, I'm a part of one that is for the genre of horror books. So it's called it's called Books of Horror. And in Books of Horror, there are people who have been reading horror for 40+ years. And what I like about that group is that I know there are a lot of people who dedicate their entire lives to horror and have 40+ years of experience to share what their favorite books are, what books actually are scary, things like that, what books are going to be worth my time. And I know that these people have so much experience and passion to share, and I can really trust where they're coming from and kind of see, after reading a few on my own, which ones I really mesh with and who I can kind of trust posts and opinions from. It's all trial and error, honestly. I also really like that Facebook group and other Facebook groups like it because more lesser known authors or people who self-publish kind of join these groups and are very, very, very involved. And I have found a few authors that way. And I think it's really great to support authors who are very, very small in scale because they still produce really great work. And so it's fun to kind of meet them through that and have them send books that, you know, they signed for you and things like that. So that's another part that I really like about it. And I'm also part of a really, really specific group, which is Stephen King Constant Readers. And that is just, you know, obviously for Stephen King. And so if you're really, really passionate about one author or one book, there's Agatha Christie groups, things like that. You can join those groups if you only want to talk about those things. And so these groups really have something for everyone. In terms of trusting from these sources, there are so many people who are involved in them. And so it can be kind of hard when one person posts, oh, well, I like Pet Sematary by Stephen King. And you'll get 100 responses saying, yes, it's the scariest book I'll ever read. And then, you know, other people, 200 people who say, no, like King's not worth your time. It's like, well, what opinions are you going to listen to? Who do you really trust from? Do the masses really appeal to you? Or do you just want to trust a few people? And so I'm kind of a lurker on there and I don't really post necessarily myself, but just kind of seeing what other people post. What books are posted a lot also kind of influences what books I read. If a lot of people are reading a certain book and there seems to be positive feedback around it, I want to join in on the conversation, so I'm going to read that book for myself. And that's kind of how I use Facebook to get book recommendations. My next place that I get book recommendations from is Reddit. And I also don't know if a lot of people are involved in this one, but Reddit has sub-communities within the page that you can join and only talk about those topics, similar to Facebook, except you don't have to join them. You can just kind of creep and, you know, don't have to have an account. You just look at them. And what I like about Reddit is that, like Facebook, you can also go from very general, like the books subreddit has 17 million followers to it, versus you can join a one just for horror literature, fantasy literature, romance literature, or you can go into, like I said, authors before. And what I really like about Reddit for books especially is it's kind of like a search engine for me. Like I'll go into the horror lit page and okay, I'm thinking about reading blah, blah, blah. And I can search it within the Reddit group and see if anybody else has posted about it. And from there, I mean, you can also do this on Facebook, but I like doing it on Reddit because I feel like it's more of a discussion. And you can kind of read through and see, oh, people's got reactions or people asking if it's worth your time or not, and kind of read through all the comments. And that's how I use Reddit. It's also really cool. It's just another place to kind of anonymously talk about books. It's not YouTube. You don't have to put your face out there. You can just have honest conversations online. And there's always moderators, which is really good. So nothing really gets too out of hand or nobody gets too mean. And if they do, they get removed. So Reddit's pretty similar to Facebook. Facebook, in my opinion, is just more of a community. And then Reddit, I use a little bit more for advice. And so that's kind of how I deal with recommendations with those two. And then my last place that I get recommendations is from Goodreads. And I don't get recommendations from Goodreads reviews. I don't necessarily love Goodreads reviews. I know there are some people out there who put a lot of time and a lot of effort into their Goodreads reviews. They read a lot of books, review every one of them, take them very seriously. Not in the sense that they're serious reviews, but in the sense that like you're taking the time to write this out. But I feel like a lot of other people either like rant review or give very spoilery reviews. And so I don't love checking a rating on a book before I read it. It doesn't really influence how I feel about a book. And I don't love reading spoilers because then I don't get the gut reaction I should get from it if I already know what's going to happen. But I do like Goodreads for the fact that they have kind of like playlists of books, groups of books that you can shelve together and look at those shelves. So, you know, if I'm in the mood for some YA dystopian, I can go and search YA dystopian on Goodreads and there will be a bunch of different shelves already made for that where I can be like, oh, this shelf has Hunger Games and Divergent. I know I'm in the right place. Or I can think, oh, like what, I really am in the mood for a series. Like what should I look for? And I can look for that and then do like best series of all time. And I can see different books that are in different series. And so it's a really good place to just kind of see books by group. And you can also do this on Facebook and Reddit and Goodreads, but searching, like, if I want a book that, talking about quarantine right now, if I want a book that's about a plague, I can just type plague in any of these 3 online sources, and you will get so many different recommendations for whatever you're just feeling right then. And that's what you can't really get from BookTube, is you can't really search like, oh, I want a book like Harry Potter, and then have like perfect videos come up. I mean, sometimes if somebody thought of that exact video, but not all the time. And so then you can go and get specific recommendations, or I really want like a really gory horror novel, and you can search Facebook and the perfect book recommendation will pop up to you in a post. And so the same thing with Goodreads. If you're like, I really want like a male smut romance, then you can search that, and there will literally be a whole playlist put together of smutty male romances that you can find and read. And so that's kind of how I use Goodreads and how I think it's good for book recommendations. I'll read like a little bit of the plot and just see if it's something I'd be interested in, and then usually I'll just take the leap and read it. All right, so those are the places that I get my book recommendations. If you use any other recommendations, please let me know in the comments. I will definitely check them out. So if you have your own way of vetting / trusting your book recommendation sources, please let me know in the comments. I think it's really interesting to see how people do things very differently. But that's it, and those are my 4 sources that I use, and I'm going to try to link them all below so you can take a look at them. Please feel free to explore them. I love them, of course. You might not love them, but I just wanted to share. Thank you to everyone who has been watching, subscribing, commenting. You guys are the best, and I will see you next week.